The Simpsons.
Hello, and welcome to the Simpsons Countdown, the podcast where we go back to the beginning and watch all of The Simpsons to trace its creative evolution and count down, finding the exact moment in which the show began to suck. I'm your host, Erix Antoine, and this week I'm once again joined by Prentice, also known as Moltisanti on some film-related forums of certain repute. We'll be discussing the episode Krusty Gets Busted, which originally aired on April 29, 1990. This classic episode served as the formal introduction of Sideshow Bob, indelibly played by Kelsey Grammer. Both Chris and I are great fans of this episode, with its well-constructed mystery plotting and imaginative direction by Brad Bird, but we are also big fans of Kelsey Grammer, and that becomes a big topic of discussion. Of course it does. Honestly, it's just a big discussion in general, culminating in a tangent where we go into the tabloid TV Craze, which had a particular boom in the mid-90s, and one could almost say this episode was very prescient in that regard. In any case, there's a lot to talk about, and we get it done in just under an hour, so now sit back or lean forward in your living room, bedroom, or bathroom, and let us keep some entertaining company with you during these lonely and occasionally stressful times, because we're all in this together. Here we go. Yeah, so how you doing, Chris? Welcome back.
Oh, I'm doing very good, very good. How about yourself?
Oh, not bad. Here we are, locked in. That's what we got to do. We just gotta grin and bear it, and get
That's
on with our
right.
lives.
That's right. Locked
Yeah.
in and enjoying Simpsons.
Oh yeah, perfect time to just sort of binge watch The Simpsons if that's what
Uh,
people want
of course, of
to do.
course.
Yeah, yeah.
So I guess now if you don't have the physical versions, I guess the only place you can watch it is on Disney Plus now. I believe. I don't think it is available anywhere else, at least in the States.
As I understand it, it is currently only available to stream on Disney Plus, and I think this is at an international level. This is not a plug for Disney Plus, but
No, 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 no.
but if people want to watch the whole thing right now, digitally at least, the only place they can get it is Disney Plus legally. The
Yeah,
only place they can get it.
which I don't have Disney Plus. It's there. See, I'm living I guess 10 years behind everyone else because I pretty much stream everything through a PlayStation 3, which is still fine for Netflix and Prime and Hulu and YouTube and lots of other stuff, but Disney Plus it's no good for Disney Plus. It's no good for the WWE network. So gonna have to probably make a change and get advance from 2011 into 2020 with some kind of product eventually.
Yes, you may have to. I mean, at this point, I would recommend that maybe you wait and just jump into the PS5
Oh
bandwagon,
yes,
since the PS4 at this point is reaching the end of its life. Or alternatively, once the PS5 comes out, the PS4 is definitely going to drop down in price, and you could just jump into that, and that's got Disney Plus, and it's got like all that other stuff. So
that's true. That's
you will
true.
you will
Yes,
definitely have options within a few months from now.
that's right.
Uh,
That's a fine idea.
yeah, assuming we're all still around and whatnot.
Well, yeah, I
Uh,
was gonna say by then I'll probably have to trade a gallon of gasoline for a PS4,
yes,
but
perhaps. Yeah, it could very well happen. Knock on wood and all that. Well, the today we're going to talk about Krusty Gets Busted, and so I'm curious if you don't have access to Disney Plus. How did you watch it recently? Were you able to see it?
oh yeah, no, I still like I said, I mean I'm kicking it old school with the vintage season one DVD set. So
Ah, yes.
I busted that out for the last episode that we did, and I blew about 12 or 13 years worth of dust off it since the last time I had busted it out,
Yeah.
and yeah, so that's how I've been enjoying these episodes is the straight up old school DVDs.
Well, honestly, you're probably better off, and I'll tell you why. I mean, maybe you've heard of this, maybe you haven't, but on Disney Plus, where they are currently streaming, they have cropped them so that they can fit into a 16:9
Yeah.
aspect ratio, for the rectangular televisions. And in cropping it, they've done a really shitty job of like reformatting the image. So they just basically zoom in, and what used to be a square image for a 4:3 television has now they zoomed it in so it can fit into the rectangular thing. And by doing that, they cut off parts of the frame. So essentially, it kind of looks like shit, to be honest.
Yeah, I did read about that, and to me, it's very ironic because when a lot of this stuff kind of first came out, the whole problem was everybody had the square TVs, and we were trying to watch movies on a square TV, so they would cut off the sides and the whole pan and scan thing, and so you were missing a good chunk of the sides of the movies because everybody has square TV. And so now everybody's got a more rectangular television, and all the stuff that was originally broadcast for square TVs is now all being jiggered with to fit in the wider TV. So we've kind of come full circle in that regard.
Yeah, it's very strange. It sort of reminds me of back in a few years ago. Let's go back about before Blu-rays came out, when it was just
Yes.
DVDs, right?
Mm-hmm.
So here in Bolivia, where I live, there really is very limited options. There are very limited options as far as getting DVDs, so there's a lot of piracy.
Yes.
Ultimately, it's all about bootlegs. There is a kiosk right outside my building that every like twice a week or whatever, he's got his DVD. He's bootleg DVDs selling movies. Some of them currently in theatrical release. Some of them older than that and whatever else. But my point is, there was a time when DVDs were relatively new still, where what would end up happening, you'd get these DVD bootlegs, and you take them home, and this is when I still, let's say, had a regular square TV,
Yes.
and but by that point I preferred the DVDs to be letterboxed because I liked seeing the full image, and
Yes.
I had a pretty big, I think it was like a 32 or whatever inch or 40-inch like square TV, so it looked pretty big and it looked good, and I didn't like watching pan and scan movies, so. But you would take these DVDs home and you would realize that in bootlegging them, what they had done is they had zoomed in the image to remove the black bars.
Ah, yes.
So then you'd go back and what the fuck, why is this zoomed in? It was like, well, people don't like the black bars, and I'm like, I don't give a fuck about what people like or don't like them. I mean, it's like you can actually do that yourself on the DVD or on the TV. You can zoom in yourself if
Right.
you don't
Well,
like the
yeah.
black bars.
Yeah, that's what I would always tell people that, because back in the day people were always ticked off about the black bars, and I would just tell, if you really don't like it, just hit the zoom button, and
Yeah, then they'll be
you know
gone, and it will look just as shitty as it used to look, but like it will look
exactly.
terrible. It will look terrible, just like you want to see it. That's how it's going to look.
You can go ahead and hit zoom. Don't force that image on me.
Right,
But
right.
yeah, people really would get in a tizzy over the black bars. That's for damn sure.
Yeah. So now they don't have to worry about the black bars. But like I said, going back, you're probably better off. But anyway, enough about that. Let's talk about the actual episode. We are here to talk about Krusty Gets Busted, which is personally, it's one of my favorite episodes of the first season and of the series in
Oh,
general, but definitely the first season.
oh, easily. Yeah, no, this is a bona fide winner from start to finish, no doubt about it.
It comes relatively late in the season. I'm not sure if they produced it very late in the season, but I would think that maybe they did, because if you look at it, it's probably the most polished episode visually of the whole season. The character designs are a little bit more polished. It's a little bit closer in its look and feel to how the series would eventually start getting once it got better. It just feels more polished than the other one.
Yeah, that, and I think it's also, one of the few episodes from the first season that basically is more focused on a character outside of the main family. It's primarily it's about what's going on with Krusty, and we learn about his life and a lot of his origins and kind of what makes him tick. And so I think that's another a huge difference that sort of sets this one apart compared to the other episodes in this season.
Right. Well, it is interesting. That's something I hadn't thought about, but you're right. It is probably the first episode where the main plot is not centered around any of the Simpsons characters.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, it kind of
right.
becomes to where Bart is obviously crucial in clearing him, and so it becomes he's obviously a major player in the episode. But in terms of just learning about a character, and if you had to ask me who is this episode about, then I'm gonna say, oh, it's about Krusty. They relay a lot of information about kind of how Krusty started, in terms of when they show all the stuff on the news broadcast about him. And so I think this is kind of the first time that we've gotten a good glimpse at one of the supporting characters on the show.
Right, where it's like, and they tell you his origin story, and like he's a vaudevillian. Like do they talk about him being in the Catskills or something?
No, oh, they mention him starting out, but it was like some Midwestern city. It kind of contradicts a bit the whole the episode later on, the one that Jackie Mason guest voiced. They sort of contradict that a little bit on this one in terms of his beginnings. So yeah, they don't really get into that portion of his life. It's just more about when he had a health issue, he had a heart attack, and they show the footage of that. And so yeah, they get into a lot of it, but it's not so much about his early childhood and things that they explored later on the show.
Right. Well, actually, that scene where they show like where he had a heart attack while
he has a heart attack during the show, which
right.
I mean the animation in that scene is so hilarious.
I'm laughing now just thinking about it.
It's just perfect.
Look, plump succulent sausage, honey smoked bacon, and glistening, sizzling.
Yeah, the animation in that sequence is brilliant.
I think we have to give a lot of credit to the director Brad Bird.
Oh yeah,
directed this episode. He's somebody who clearly he looks to inspiration to old Looney Tunes cartoons, Chuck Jones, and
yes.
that sort of thing. And you can really see that in this episode. That the heart attack scene. I mean, you're laughing at somebody having a heart attack, and it's because of the animation, because of his face.
No, totally. One of my favorite parts of the episode is that specific sequence, and it's very jarring, but in a hilarious way. Is because I don't think there really had been. I mean, as the show would progress, there would be moments like that on the show, but I don't know if there had been anything quite like that on the show up until this point.
I mean, the episode in general has a lot of cinematic flourish to it, and just they put a lot of emphasis on certain things like that, visual gags that are very specific and very funny. And going to the thing about the heart attack, I don't know that this was deliberate, but it does make me think, because like he's hawking sausages, right?
Right. It's all different types of bacon and various pork products.
And it got me thinking. I believe that, I don't know if it was in the 80s or 90s, but there was a time when James Garner was a spokesperson. I think it was some kind of meat product.
Okay.
Or maybe it was a steakhouse or something like that, where James Garner was endorsing it.
I've devised my own way to cook perfect steaks without slicing them open. Beef, real food for real people.
But I believe that James Garner himself was at that time a heart attack survivor.
Okay, yeah.
It sort of makes you think, well, you're endorsing food that you probably yourself at this point couldn't eat.
Yeah, it might have been a subtle dig at that. That's quite possible.
Right. I mean, but just for me, it's just the fact that he's like, hawking this very greasy, stuff that's really bad for you, and so, and he has a heart attack. It's the
Yeah.
whole concept. It's just
Well,
really
and then it's also the fact that it's in front of a whole live audience of children
right.
is the kicker to the whole sequence. So that's I can only imagine if something like that were to happen in real life, that would be one of the most viewed clips on YouTube forever and ever.
Right, absolutely. The fact that the kids think it's a bit.
Right.
I don't know if there is something that happened. I don't know if it was before or after this, but it's a British comedian
Oh yes,
who had a heart attack on stage, died on stage,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
people thought it was a bit.
I know. Yeah, unfortunately, I did see that before. That was
Yeah.
yeah. It's not that one wasn't as funny as you would. Well, I guess you wouldn't even really think it would be that funny, but yeah, I did make the unfortunate decision to watch that once before.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's like on YouTube or something if someone wants to check it out.
Oh
No,
yeah.
he does not make funny faces the way that Krusty does. He just kind of falls.
No, it's just
That's
kind
it.
of
Yeah.
yeah. It's, without the Brad Bird animation, it doesn't have the yucks that you would hope for.
Yes. There is one YouTube clip which I think, although it's not about a heart attack, but I think it is similar to this, and it's a good segue. I'm sure you've seen the clip of Kelsey Grammer giving I believe he's giving a speech or talking about something on stage, and he falls off stage like right as he's talking. He's like walking.
Trip through It's a Small World, pretending I was a UN interpreter. Oh, good Lord.
Oh. Like that's funny. And Kelsey Grammer is the big guest star in this episode. And at the time, they made a big deal out of that. It was a big deal because Cheers was still on.
Oh yeah, Cheers was like the king of TV at this point.
And I do remember that it was a big, this was very publicized. When the show, before it even aired, they were already talking about it, like on Entertainment Tonight and on any other shows. Like they were talking about the fact that Kelsey Grammer was guest starring on The Simpsons. Since, we've spoken about this before, Albert Brooks had already done a couple of guest voices in the season, but he didn't credit himself, and they didn't publicize that.
Right.
So technically, this is the first big guest star of the show in the show's history. It was publicized, and he's credited, and it's all there. I do think that he knocks it out of the park. I mean, we've talked about Albert Brooks and how he's a genius, and he did great work. But really, I would say that ultimately, I think Kelsey Grammer is the best guest star of the season.
No, I would agree with that. I mean, I loved what Brooks did with his characters. But yeah, I mean, as soon as you hear Grammer's voice on this show, it's like nothing could be more perfect than that. I mean, he just oozes that whole sort of the evil intellectual who he's going to be the mastermind criminal of the show.
He's a great villain. I mean, it is the first episode of the show that kind of has this, let's say, it's like a genre story. It's kind of a thriller. I'm not gonna. I mean, it's it's a mystery story in a sense. Yeah. It's a detective story.
This could have easily if you change it up just a little bit, could have easily been a Father Dowling mystery.
Yes. With nobody's killed, but there is a crime committed and the wrong person is accused. Father Dowling or Perry Mason or whatever, like of the time, Matlock.
Yes. That's right. I always preferred Father Dowling. I don't think he was short-lived compared to Matlock, but I think Father Dowling is one of the more unsung TV detectives.
A man died in my confessional.
Tom Bosley's up to his collar and crying.
It's my lucky day.
It was an interesting concept for a mystery show, and you're right. Something like this would have fit right in. Sideshow Bob turns out to be a really interesting villain. As you said, like he didn't start out as being this sort of brilliant criminal mastermind, and who even knows if at the time that they wrote this episode they thought that would happen. I'm pretty sure that at this point it was like, well, this is a one and done,
right?
But it's good that we have a really good actor to play this part. It's a fun part, and he can have fun with it, and it can be memorable. And I do think it's more he's kind of he's the villain, but there's a tragedy to the character, because what you see is that he's a very talented, sophisticated guy, but he's relegated to being the dumb sidekick, mute sidekick of this kind of second-rate clown,
Right.
and so that he hates that,
Yes, and despises constantly being shot out of a cannon. Which, yeah. So I mean, there's obviously quite a motive for him to frame Krusty for this crime, and to take over Krusty's show. It's in some ways it's the perfect crime.
Right. I mean, because nobody, if it weren't for the brilliance of Bart and Lisa, nobody would have ever been the wiser.
No, absolutely not.
Ironically enough, the show, what is it? Sideshow Bob's Cavalcade of. It's just weird. It changes too.
Yeah, he does. He changes the name somewhat, but I like how he says that. Oh, we're still gonna have Itchy and Scratchy, so they're not gonna change it wholesale. But then he does spend time, reading from the Man in the Iron Mask, and so it's I guess it's his grand attempt to culture the children of Springfield, and how dare he do such a thing?
Yeah, of course, how dare he? And that's kind of my point. Like, ultimately, the show probably would have been better. In fact, at the beginning, Lisa is actually enjoying it. Once she has accepted that, because as far as she's concerned, Krusty, at that point, she believes that Krusty is a criminal.
What the hell are you doing, Lise? I'm watching Sideshow Bob. He's a lot less patronizing than Krusty used to be. You backstabber, you traitor, you... Snap out of it, Bart. Face the facts. All those hours we spent staring at Krusty, we were staring at a crook.
It's an early example of cancel culture on behalf,
Yes.
being practiced by Lisa. And she's actually embracing this new show.
Yeah, what I like though is that even though Lisa is always technically the smartest member of the family, and she's the one who's the most well read, and she's very much, in fact, the most cultured, is that they have these scenes like in this show, where she's watching Krusty the Clown with Bart, and she's basically right down at his level. I mean, she's loving the Itchy and Scratchy cartoons, and so even though she has that very kind of cultured sensibility that they've given her, and she's a musician and she's got all these talents, that she's still also a kid. And she can enjoy the Krusty show just as much as Bart does, and so I mean that's kind of a little thing that they've always done with her character, where they haven't made her just a complete almost like a Doogie Howser type who's just can't really relate to kids at all. She still is definitely a little girl.
Sure, and I can relate to that part of it, and I think in some way you can too, because you and I, we came to be friends as members of a internet film fan community.
Yes.
Where we basically bonded over our shared love of like B-action cinema,
Right. Yeah.
And that's and to be perfectly honest, like, I take pride in the fact that I can find just as much enjoyment out of watching a cop thriller like Above the Law as I can watching Heat. You know what I mean? I can.
Oh yeah.
I'm not going to compare the movies on an artistic level, obviously, but I can say that they are both enjoyable. They both have their own merits, and I can enjoy that. And I think Lisa, she can enjoy a wacky slapstick Itchy and Scratchy cartoon just like she can enjoy Sideshow Bob reading The Man in the Iron Mask.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's a good comparison, and I think she can appreciate when people are good at their job, whether it's in a more cultured way or even in a lowbrow way. She's able to appreciate when she's seeing quality entertainment, and so I like that aspect to her character, that they have her able to enjoy Krusty just as much as Bart does.
A volley of musketry flamed, thundered, roared. A profound silence followed, broken only by the approaching footsteps of the 3rd Brigade.
So let's talk about Kelsey Grammer for a bit, because he's
Sure.
He's definitely as we said, he is the highlight of this episode, and
Oh yeah.
I think both of us appreciate him, his talent as an actor, and wonderful voice that he has. That
Oh yeah.
mid-Atlantic inflection is just I just think it's one of the most delicious voices of anybody like working in the industry today.
Yeah, well, like I've always kind of looked at Cheers as kind of what was sort of my bridge into comedy was with Cheers, because before I ever watched Cheers, like the only kind of shows I probably would have saw was stuff like Different Strokes or Facts of Life, and those kind of shows that whatever, they're just shows that you just basically watch and that's all you really do. Whereas like with Cheers, it was kind of like that was the first show that I would watch, and I could really kind of tell, okay, there's some real talent on display here. There's some really good writing. These are very distinct characters. This is a show that there's more work being put into this show than the other shows that I've been watching. And so I mean that's how I've always kind of looked at Cheers. And I mean I really love all the characters on that show, but Frasier was always my favorite because I just loved how they would take this very cultured and educated psychiatrist, and just by him being in that bar, it would always drag him down into the mud, and it would he would have to basically go on the level of everybody in that bar, and he would end up usually being the more crazy person than anybody on that show. And so that's why I always kind of loved that character, and his performance as that character was just, I always thought was just hilarious.
Well, it's interesting to note a couple of things actually, because he came in to Cheers, I believe, in the second or third season.
I think it was. I believe it was the third. I could be wrong, but yeah, it was right around there.
Yeah, it would have been. Maybe you're probably right. I think it's the third, because there was like a cliffhanger at the end of the second season where Diane had gone away, and then she comes back, and in the third season, she comes back and she's dating Frasier. Right?
Yeah.
And
yes.
I think he wasn't intended to be a series regular at that point.
Right. He was basically just going to be kind of a new foil for Sam, and he would be competing with Sam for Diane's affections. But yeah, it was never, as far as I know, was never planned to be a permanent character on the show.
I guess they saw his work was so good, they'd be fools to not keep him around.
Oh yeah.
But do you know? Have you heard who originally was cast, or who they were thinking of to play Frasier when it was just this one-off? Yeah, so they were originally thinking of John Lithgow. That was.
Oh, okay.
And in fact, I didn't know. They'd even talked to him, and I think he was considering it, but I think he couldn't do it because of other commitments, or something came up. Not that he didn't want to, but there was some reason why he couldn't do it. He was unavailable or whatever it was, and that's why they went to Kelsey Grammer. Because Kelsey Grammer was basically an unknown actor at that point. He was just a theater actor. He wasn't really.
Yeah, I mean, I could totally picture that. I mean, I could see Lithgow playing that part. I can't really imagine him playing it for as long as Kelsey Grammer would have. I mean, I think Lithgow definitely would have been like, okay, yeah, I'll do a few of these, and then I'm going to be on my way. But yeah, I mean, I can totally picture Lithgow playing that type of character, no doubt about it.
Yeah, I think he would have done a great job, but as you say, what would have ended up happening is it would have been evidently that, a handful of episodes, and then that story arc would have been resolved, and then maybe he would have been brought back for like some guest spot at one point, but it wouldn't have been something like that, and therefore the character would not have grown, and we never would have gotten Frasier as like a character, which I agree with you. I mean, he is my favorite character in Cheers.
Yeah, like there's just so many great bits.
I agree with that talk show host. Give me a comfortable pair of old ratty house slippers any day.
So that's how it is. Now I'm a pair of ratty old house slippers. At least this afternoon I was an old shoe. You could at least wear me outside, maybe do a little gardening. Is that it? You all think I'm just an old slipper? Am I a good boy? Would a good boy do this? I am running with scissors.
Yeah, so I mean, basically having him on that show to kind of be like the the contrast to Norm and Cliff and all those characters, it made the show. I mean, and the show was perfectly good before Frasier, but I think he brought so much to that program, and I mean, I can totally understand why he got the spinoff out of it, which I wasn't as high on the spinoff. It was fine. To me, it just didn't. It wasn't the same anymore. It was a decent show, and I'm not gonna say that it was bad or anything like that, but I felt like that character was a lot better when he was sort of the character that was the odd duck instead of being the leading man. But that's just me.
Yeah, no, I completely understand. I mean, I happen to be a really big fan of Frasier. But I see your point. I mean, of the show. I mean,
yeah.
But I totally see your point. I mean, I think it ultimately it's a thing about flavoring, and you're right that in Cheers he worked as the whole point was he's the odd duck, and so in a sense he's almost like the straight man, although he could be very funny. But it was about putting him. He's the odd man out, in the situation, and that's what makes it comical, and they can play with that concept. Whereas in Frasier, he had to take center stage, and in order for that to work, they actually had to change. They had to retcon the character, because ultimately the Frasier that we see in Frasier is not really the same guy that we saw in Cheers. They had to make adjustments so that it would work.
Yeah, and so to me, like, my favorite character on Frasier was his dad, the John Mahoney character, and he was basically the odd duck on the show in terms of, and that's why I really appreciated him on that program. So they kind of made him kind of the reverse Frasier on Frasier, basically. And so, I mean, again, I liked Frasier. I mean, it was fine, and it doesn't, when I think of Frasier Crane, I think of him on Cheers, and that's just kind of how I associate the character.
Yeah, he's an added value element. He's definitely an added value element, of course, to The Simpsons, and I just love his delivery. He has this.
Sure.
It's just the way he has of delivering lines. His sense of timing.
He makes everything sound better. He's one of those guys that could take just the most kind of basic line, and he just knows how to get that little extra nuance out of it that makes it just a little bit funnier than somebody else would.
Let's try to remember Krusty not as a hardened criminal, but as that lovable jester who honked his horn and putted around in his little car.
And shot you out of a cannon.
And shot me out of a cannon. Yes, we will never forget that, will we?
He really nails it as far as playing the bad guy. When I saw him when he started doing movies, and to be fair, he really hasn't done too many, and they unfortunately haven't been great.
No.
But I do remember I was really excited when, and I'm not like a fan of this franchise, but the only reason I even wanted to see, what was the third or the fourth Transformers movie? I think it was the fourth one where he's the bad guy. Yeah, it's the fourth one. It's the one with Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah, I'm going to defer to you, because it was after one Transformers, that was it for me.
I mean, the thing is, I don't even want to. I know you're a fan, but of the actor, but I would be like, I don't know if I want to subject you to, because it's like a 3-hour movie. Okay, it's 3 hours.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
Of giant metal piles of trash beating the shit out of each other for 3 hours, like headache-inducing. Quick cutting and of the Michael Bay variety, and I would say I could not in good conscience recommend it, but it's fun to see him play the bad guy. He definitely tears into the role. He's like the hissable villain, the evil, corrupt guy. It's terrific, and I do love, like, he's got a final line right before he, because it's this whole thing about the war between the Decepticons and the whatever the convoluted bullshit mythology that's going on there. But so right when at the end, when he's got the drop on Wahlberg, and he's like pointing his gun at him, and he's got this really dramatic thing where he goes like,
"There are no good aliens or bad aliens, Yeager.
It's just us and them. And you chose them.
I'll tell you, the movie that he did, and it's not a very good movie, but I thought he was good in it, and he's not really the villain, but he's just kind of an unscrupulous character. Is the De Niro Ed Burns movie, 15 Minutes?
Oh, of course.
Where he plays the news anchor who's, obviously will do anything for ratings and is, he doesn't care what happens as long as he gets the story.
Right.
And it's the movie itself is not so hot.
I don't want just blood and guts.
If it bleeds, it bleeds.
There you go. Like that, I clearly remember that I went to see that movie because he was in it. I mean, of course, I'm a fan of De Niro, and so like I remember, it's a De Niro thing, and then I see that Kelsey Grammer's in it. I was like, oh shit, I gotta go. This is gonna be a good movie. I was, of course, disappointed in the movie when I did go see it, but
well, yeah, because I mean, they kind of like, I guess the big thing in the movie is that they basically, I mean, I'm spoilers for a 19-year-old movie, but I mean,
spoiler alert for a terrible movie.
Yeah. They kill off De Niro pretty much midway through it. Now you're left with an Ed Burns movie, and that's a problem right there. It's like on the one hand, you have kind of faked everyone out by killing De Niro off really fairly early, and it's like, wow, oh my goodness, look at this. But then you're left with about 45 minutes of Ed Burns trying to save the day, and it's just, I think maybe they would have been better off killing Ed Burns off and then just keeping it a De Niro movie.
You want headlines? You want to make money? You want to be a celebrity? Shoot me!
15 minutes.
I don't really care for Ed Burns. I don't know the guy. He might be a perfectly nice guy, but I find him very...
I'm sure he's...
I remember wanting to see, like, there's this movie, Confidence.
Oh, yes. Yes.
And I remember, looking forward to it, because I liked the whole cast, with the exception of Ed Burns. It had this great trailer with the Queens of the Stone Age.
It's not just about money. It's not just about trust. It's about getting away clean. Edward Burns, Rachel Weisz, Andy Garcia, and Dustin Hoffman. Confidence.
You're a good grifter, man.
Had you pop in Confidence? This might be a cool. And it was directed by James Foley, who is a reliable guy. So I'm like, this is going to be good. But again, you have to sit through an hour and 45 minutes of Ed Burns, and it just doesn't really work.
It's confidence. Just confidence.
I mean, it's hard to figure out why some of these guys are able to get these parts and why they get these brief flashes where they're leading men. But the whole Ed Burns experiment, nothing personal against him, but it just, that was not a success. And I guess it was probably the Sound of Thunder that basically put an end to it. So you can say maybe Peter Hyams made one of his worst movies, but then he also kind of did the world a favor by snuffing out the brief period of fame that Edward Burns had.
In the year 2055, time travel will be possible.
We're taking you back 65 million years to hunt the greatest predator the world has ever seen.
But there is one rule.
On this hunt, someone will die.
This September, evolve or die.
It has to be connected to our last joke. You must have changed something.
And what did you change?
We don't know.
Edward Burns. The Sound of Thunder.
All right, great. So back to Krusty Get Busted. Is there anything that you wanted to bring up that we haven't talked about yet?
One of the moments that jumped out at me watching it now is in the very beginning of the episode when Bart and Lisa are watching Krusty.
Yeah, that would be a think piece right there if this were
yes.
to air today as a fresh thing.
Hey, kids, who do you love? How much do you love me?
With all our hearts!
What would you do if I went off the air?
We kill ourselves!
The plot of this episode, it's more like a genre piece than any of the other ones. It's not really a family-oriented drama or thing. It's an adventure mystery. You know what I mean?
It's not really. It's not. There's no moral to the story really. It is basically it's a mystery. It's it's essentially a whodunit, and what are following the clues and hey, there's the sign that not to come here with a pacemaker. Well, Krusty had the pacemaker, and then there's the revelation that Krusty can't read. Well, we see that Krusty on the camera was reading, and and eventually what seals the deal is the Sideshow Bob's giant feet, whereas Krusty has small feet like any normal decent man would.
Krusty wore big floppy shoes, but he's got little feet like all good-hearted people.
It's probably somewhat offensive for people who have large feet. The reason I was bringing that up, though, is because these episodes were not, as far as I know, they were not written in the same order that they aired. They certainly weren't produced in the same order that they aired. But it is rather interesting because the previous episode to this is the one where Bart goes to France. And and in that episode, if you'll recall, that has kind of a genre thrillery element to it. Bart gets sort of exploited by these corrupt French winemakers, and at the same time, you have the whole subplot about like a spy, that whole thing. So it's kind of like it's got like a spy thriller element to it. Then you have this episode, which is kind of like a mystery story, and then you have the next week's episode, which is the season finale, which involves again kind of a thriller sort of storyline of the evil babysitter bandit putting the kids in danger. So it is interesting that you have these 3 episodes. The 3 episodes that end the season are very much have genre elements to them.
That's true, yeah, and I hadn't really thought of that.
Yeah, it's unusual how these things sort of come together, and I don't know how it was decided. I don't know I think maybe it was arbitrary, but it is interesting how that's how it all kind of fell into place. I do know this one detail, and obviously by the time this episode was written, this was no longer the case. But I do think that early on, when they first came up with the concept of Krusty, like if you look at Krusty, he pretty much looks like Homer, but just with clown makeup on, and whatnot. And I think that initially, when the character was first conceived, they thought about eventually revealing that he was Homer, that this was some secret life that Homer had.
Yeah.
This might have been a potential thing that they wanted to do eventually, but they didn't. And, thankfully they didn't. I think that would have been weird.
I hated him. His hackneyed shenanigans robbed me of my dignity for years. That's why I framed Krusty. I would have gotten away with it, too, if it went for these meddling kids.
I also want to say that there's, in terms of kind of other moments that stood out to me here, is a great early moment for Reverend Lovejoy, doing his Sunday sermon, and wanting everyone to bring their Krusty merchandise.
I urge every halfway decent member of our community to gather up all merchandise that bears the likeness of Krusty, that clown prince of corruption, and join me in a public burning.
I mean, like I said at the beginning when we were talking about it, it predates the idea of cancel culture.
Yeah.
Which I'm putting in quotes, air quotes, because it's a thing that we've labeled now. But it's
right.
But what it shows you is that this sort of thing has always existed.
Right.
The idea of a public figure, an entertainer, eventually falling from grace, and it has happened. It's not like people say, the only difference is that the internet didn't exist back then, so it just didn't feel like it was so in your face. But things like this happened all the time. And particularly with child entertainers, in very horrendous things that happened. Here, obviously, I don't know if they're doing a play on that. I mean, maybe in some way they are making an allusion to it. But obviously they don't. They have his crime be something that's he held up a convenience store, which it's kind of like a thing where you go, and don't people they certainly don't do enough of an investigation, because you go like, why would a wealthy, because you'd have to you'd imagine that Krusty must be a relatively well-off person. He's got a television show. I mean, this is before we know he's maybe gambling debts or whatever else. But the fact that he would need to, like, that would be the first the thing where you would doubt it. Like, he held up a convenience store for money. Like, why would he do that? Like, why? You know?
Well, it's interesting because obviously on The Simpsons, Krusty is the beloved child entertainer, has the children's TV show, and this whole episode is about a scandal in which the host of the child show is put in prison, is found guilty of this crime, and it's actually somewhat reminiscent of it, and it actually predates this by about a year, of sort of the downfall of Pee Wee Herman, which was basically a year later from this episode. I mean, it's the parallels to that are kind of are somewhat similar, where you had, again, beloved child entertainer, Saturday morning show that all the kids love, and then obviously the unsorted crime that he was arrested for, followed by the mugshot. Again, before the internet, I mean, I can't imagine if that happened during when now, but man, even for something that wasn't that didn't have the exposure of the internet, I mean, that was a huge story back at that period.
Yeah, it was a huge story, and you're right. The mugshot, coincidentally enough, Krusty's mugshot and Paul Rubens' mugshot are eerily similar. If you look at them. If you go ahead and they're quite.
It's like if you were to show this episode to someone and tell them, oh, this was actually, if you were just to kind of tell them this was a year after and this was all done as a parody of that, you'd probably believe it. But this was before all that. But it's just kind of interesting how that real life situation really sort of paralleled this episode.
Yeah, and it kind of shows. I mean, a scandal around a guy who jerked off in a porno theater.
Yeah, simpler times.
And they made such a big deal out of it because he's a child entertainer. But yeah. I think that that was what it was. But it's at the time, and of course now, but even then, I was like, really? I mean, is this really a big deal? Are we? I mean, what did he do? He did something in a theater that somebody else probably also was doing, but he was just unlucky enough to get caught.
I just remember it being, I mean, because I was, probably in the earlier years in high school when that kind of happened, and it was like, that was like the talk of everyone. It was, oh my God, can you believe that mugshot photo? And holy crap! And
hi, boys and girls. Your friend Pee Wee has been on a new adventure.
That was just one of those stories where that happened when tabloid media sort of started to really get going. I mean, it was maybe more the mid 90s when it was a really big thing, and then you had Tonya Harding, and you had the Menendez brothers, and you had the granddaddy of them all with OJ. So Pee Wee was a little bit before that, but it was kind of one of those early tabloid stories that Hard Copy had a field day with, and Current Affair, and so it just was one of those earlier stories that kind of kicked off the whole tabloid frenzy that really kind of is one of the hallmarks of the 90s, basically.
It really is, and it makes you. It's interesting to put it in perspective, but you're absolutely right. Like, I was thinking, you have the Pee Wee Herman thing, which is relatively lighthearted.
Yeah.
In comparison with some of the other things we've just mentioned. I mean, O.J. Simpson. Let's not even get started there. But but it's almost like there was this escalation. You have Paul Rubens jerking off in a porn theater, and then you have Amy Fisher.
All this damage by someone who still shows absolutely no remorse for her actions.
Sometimes I think this is a nightmare and it didn't happen, and then I realize that it did.
For many months, you had stalked Mary Jo Buttafuoco like a wild animal stalks its prey. Motivated by lust and passion, you were a walking stick of dynamite with the fuse lit.
These things, Your Honor, they are all true. They are facts.
The Menendez brothers, that was even though they weren't famous themselves, it was just because it was all part of that Hollywood culture. A huge story that all those shows covered. For that was kind of probably the biggest one before OJ.
And they all got movies. They all got Amy Fisher got 3 of them. 3 counts them, 3 movies. All of them entertaining for different reasons.
The Menendez brothers, I mean, a lot of that is parodied in The Cable Guy. That's a big part of The Cable Guy is that they not only have, Ben Stiller playing a variation of the Menendez brothers within The Cable Guy's reality, but they also have a movie based on those crimes in which Eric Roberts is playing Ben Stiller. It gets it's very funny stuff.
Tonight on UPN, the trial that's captured the nation. Everybody is waiting for the verdict, but you don't have to wait for the movie.
Cry, baby. Look who's crying.
Eric Roberts is Sam and Stan Sweet in Brother, Sweet Brother, The Killing of Stanton Sweet. Parental discretion advised.
I think The Cable Guy does a better job of basically shining a light on that tabloid culture than Natural Born Killers was trying to do.
I'm going to agree with you. I have not seen The Cable Guy in a while, although when I did see it, I liked it immediately. I mean, when I first saw The Cable Guy when it came out, and it came out accompanied by bad press, obviously, because it had bombed, and then got bad reviews. But I remember sitting there watching it and thinking it was brilliant. It was just a brilliantly witty comedy when I saw it then. And then I revisited it a couple of times, and I've always found it very funny. And whereas, Natural Born Killers, I did like it when I first saw it, and it had made an impression on me when I was, I guess, 17 or whatever it was. It kind of hits you in a certain way at a certain time, and I even bought the soundtrack. And I still like the soundtrack, but I've never really felt an urge to revisit Natural Born Killers.
Yeah.
Cable Guy, now that we're talking about it, I kind of feel like watching it right now.
It's not one that I'm too fond of. I did watch it within the last couple of years, and to me, they might as well just name it, Trying Too Hard, the movie. It's basically Natural Born Killers. I mean, I feel like there's a little bit of novelty early on. I can kind of appreciate this on just kind of a twisted level, but it just goes on, and it just is constantly trying to outdo itself, and I feel like it never really does outdo itself. And so it's just never been one that I've really been into.
I will revisit it to reassess it in a way at some point, because I have not seen it in at least 15 years or something, but I do know that at the time, I considered it good, but I can see how, because even then, when I thought about it, it's not a very subtle movie, certainly. So when you are a little more aware of things, you go I get it, Oliver Stone. I don't need to be, and whereas you're right. I mean, The Cable Guy kind of touches on the same topics in a way that is maybe a little bit more, I can see how it would work better. What I mean?
It's not necessarily the plot of The Cable Guy, but I think a lot of, kind of what has become of this generation raised on television, raised on, mass media, and, how warped have they become. I feel like you kind of almost get a better look at that in Cable Guy than you do in Natural Born Killers.
Ultimately, Natural Born Killers is just it's an in-your-face expose of the media as a concept, whereas Cable Guy actually shows you the effect of the media. I think I can totally see it your way. Wow, that's a great tangent that we just went on, huh?
If we don't battle to the death, they will kill us both.
This isn't Star Trek.
So is there anything else that we have not covered? With regards to
it's just the fact that it's a winner of an episode, sheds light on a kind of a character that we didn't have so much light shed on before, and I think it's kind of a preview of what was to come from the series in terms of giving more time to the supporting characters and really kind of building on the whole universe that's going on in Springfield.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely my favorite episode of the season, and I think I would almost want to say that it's the best episode of the season, the most polished one. It has Brad Bird obviously has a lot to do with that.
Sure,
I would think, because there is a certain quality to this episode, the way it's put together, the pacing of it, all those visual gags that we talked about.
Yes.
And there's a lot of really fun, cool stuff that this is an episode that if you put it in a later season, it would fit. It wouldn't feel so out of place like some of the other episodes of the first season that you would definitely see this rawness to them.
Yes. Yeah. No, I mean, this is one that if you were to basically take the same script and make it a season 3 or a season 4 episode, it would fit just fine with the ones from those years.
It has many of those hallmarks, the fact that they get a really good actor to play the guest role, and just the story is really nicely constructed. It's like a genuine sort of mystery. I mean, it's not really you know who it is, and even the show itself reveals that, it's that they don't really make a big deal out of. It's kind of like Columbo in the sense where you know who the bad guy is, and it's just a question of how they're going to catch him. Yeah, definitely one of our favorites. It's a good one, and this is a good talk, man. This is it's a lot of fun to relive these things with you, man. It's
fun.
Absolutely. We go off on some tangents, but it's what we're doing. I mean, it's just a lot of fun to do this.
Yeah, well, I think that just kind of speaks to how much The Simpsons kind of permeated the culture, and that you can kind of take their plot lines or just references, and you can basically spin them off into all kinds of different discussions.
Absolutely. Like the really good episodes really give you a lot to talk about. That's true.
For sure.
Well, once you get really into it, and this one goes into media culture and all that kind of stuff. So it's a great episode, and this has been a great talk, and I want to thank you for joining me again.
Yes, well, thank you for having me on. This is a great diversion from world events.
Oh yes, right now I think we could all use a little bit of a distraction, and I'm definitely going to have you come back on the second season to talk about some more classic episodes, because it's.
I'm right there. You let me know, and then I'm there to relive these classic Simpson episodes that I haven't seen in a very long time, but I'm enjoying revisiting them.
All right, man. Thank you for coming.
All right. Thanks for having me.
See you next time. So that's it for this week's installment of the Simpsons Countdown. Thank you for joining us. If you enjoyed this, please give us a like. If you haven't yet, go ahead and subscribe. Feel free to leave a comment or two expressing your appreciation. And if it isn't too much trouble, please do share this with all your friends, both virtual and actual, on your social media platform of choice. The more you care and share, the more listeners will come on board, and the podcast will just get bigger and better with each passing week. So thanks in advance for spreading the word. I'm Erix Antoine. Next time, I'll be joined once again by Mike Drew Flynn. We'll bring the first season to a close discussing Some Enchanted Evening, the one about the evil babysitter. Remember that one? I hope you'll join us. And in the meantime, stay safe. Please stay home. Practice social distancing. And keep yourselves and all of us safe by doing that. Thank you, and be well.
Amy Fisher is a liar and has zero credibility.